Welcome back to episode 47 of Working Towards Our Purpose. And in today's episode, I want to talk about giving yourself permission. But before we get into that, I always like to start with something kind of positive. And I have a little bit of a story that I think is funny. It might not be funny retelling it, but I was on my run this morning and I was on the sidewalk, doing my run. And I felt something like crash into my feet, and I looked back and there was nothing there, and I thought I was going crazy for a second, and then I kind of thought about it and I was like, I think a squirrel just ran into my feet as I was running. And I don't know, it was really odd. And then I started laughing, and I think it was a squirrel, because squirrels always kind of dart in front of me to they think I'm chasing them or something, so they get out of the way. But I think this one was too slow and he just ran right into my feet. And yeah, I just thought that was hilarious. But probably not as funny now that I'm telling you back. But it's probably more surprise than anything. But yeah, that's my positive funny thing for today. And so this episode's going to be a little bit different structure wise, I think. I've been thinking about this idea of giving yourself permission, and it, I was on my run this morning thinking about it, and it kind of just brought up a lot of different stories that were coming up. So the way that I'm going to structure this episode is I'm going to kind of tell these 3 different stories that have to do with giving yourself permission. And then at the end, I'll kind of wrap it up with 3 tips of, how to go about doing that, I guess. So the first story that kind of came up, and I forgot about this one for a while, but it came to me, and it was when I was, I don't know what grade you're in when you get into instruments and band class. But I think it was 3rd or 4th grade. Anyways, I remember we had this day or this night or something where we went and the band teacher talked to us, and he was like, these are what the instruments are. I guess tell me what you're interested in. And I remember at the end of it, walking up to him, and he asked me well, what are you interested in? And I was like, I want to play the saxophone. And I remember he asked to look at my hands, and he was like, oh, your hands might be too small to play that. And he was like, I don't know. And then I remember being sort of worried about it, because I wanted to play the sax, and I didn't know if I was going to get to, because this teacher said that my hands weren't big enough, which is hilarious because I'm probably 8 or however you are in that grade, however old you are in that grade. So we all had small hands, but yeah, then I kind of don't remember what happened. I think my dad probably had a word with him and was like, he's fine or something, and stuck up for me. And then I did end up playing the sax, and obviously I had no problem with it. But I remember that moment kind of being, obviously I still remember it, and it was kind of teetering on the permission thing. The teacher almost didn't give me the permission to do it because he didn't think my hands were big enough. But then it ended up, his mind got persuaded, and it ended up being fine. And then I ended up playing sax. So that was the first kind of story that came up. And then the second one that was a little bit more memorable for me was when I learned how to play guitar. And I remember me and my brother, for whatever reason, had this idea in our head that we wanted to play guitar. I don't really know where it came from. Probably because we were first starting to get into music and stuff. And we liked a lot of guitar-based music, bands and that kind of stuff. So the both of us asked for a guitar for, I'm sure, Christmas or something like that. And we got this guitar that had a built-in amp from some catalog, the Heartland catalogs, if you're old enough to remember those, if they still exist, I don't know. But there was a guitar in there, and it was terrible. It didn't stay in tune or anything, but it was a guitar. And I remember being really excited to learn it and picking it up. And then I have this memory of being oh, I don't know how to use this thing at all. I don't know where to even start. And then it went into a closet for a couple months, and we didn't touch it after a couple days of trying. And then one day I stumbled upon guitartab.com, ultimateguitartab.com. And guitar tablature is basically just like numbers representing the fretboard. So you can learn songs without having to read music. You can just like read the numbers and then kind of count the frets and be like, okay, put my hands at 5, 7, whatever. So once I like realized that I didn't need to learn how to read music and I could just read numbers, at that point, like I never looked back with guitar. I've played it ever since. I've, done so many different things with guitar, from learning other people's songs to making my own songs, recording, all that kind of stuff. And I think it was at that like pivotal moment when I found that website and I was like, oh, I can teach this to myself. I can, I don't need to go to like a teacher or anything. I don't need to have somebody tell me that like I'm good enough to play or anything like that. I kind of just like got to work practicing and like trying to learn songs that I wanted to learn. And I didn't start with like scales or anything like that. I started with Metallica songs because that was what I was into. And, Pantera songs and Disturbed and, stuff that like I really wanted to learn. But I think that pivotal moment was me giving myself permission to learn how to play guitar because I knew how to read numbers. So I was like, well, all right, if I could read numbers, then I can, learn how to play guitar. So that was like another sort of pivotal moment of giving myself permission. First one was kind of like my dad maybe giving me permission over this like, band teacher. But then learning guitar was kind of like very self-empowering for me, and it always has been. And then the third story, which just so happens to also be music related. I remember we were in high school and I was just kind of learning how to play guitar. I've probably been playing for a year or two. And I was talking to my friend who also played guitar, and he played longer than me. And I thought he was better than me. And he was talking about like looking at other professional guitarists online, like looking people that we looked up to, people that sort of were like our heroes and stuff. And I remember he was talking about it, and then he was like, yeah, I watch videos of these guys playing, and it just really, makes me feel like I'm never going to be that good. And he's kind of said it like in a negative, self-demeaning kind of way. And I was like kind of shocked because that was not my experience at all. My experience was like watching videos of really good guitar players, people that inspired me. And then that would kind of encourage me to try to get better and to try to like learn their songs. And specifically, we were talking about the Pantera guitarist, Dimebag Darrell, and he was one of my favorites growing up, and one of the ones that I really like wanted to learn from because I really admired the way that he played guitar. And we were talking about him, and he was like, yeah, I just watch him, and like I just think I'm never going to be able to get there. And my interpretation was the exact opposite. I was like, well, oh, he inspires me. Like I like the way that he plays. I want to be able to play like him. So it's interesting, like how your perspective can switch. And I think, in that moment, I was definitely grateful that I had my perception of that. And I wasn't sure why like my friend had the negative perception. But I remember being like, I'm glad I don't think like him. and I'm glad that like I use this as encouragement and like almost kind of like the permission of this guy can, do it. Then if I work hard, then maybe I can do that. So yeah, kind of, I don't know why this topic of giving yourself permission kind of brings up all these music stories for me, but probably not a coincidence. So now getting to like kind of the 3 steps or the 3 tips maybe to helping you give yourself permission to do something. And yeah, before we even get into that, I think maybe take a second and think about like, is there something in your life that you maybe haven't done because somebody like didn't give you the permission to do it? Maybe it's like going to school or learning an instrument or playing a sport. Is there something that like maybe you really wanted to do, but you didn't think you could, or you didn't think you were good enough, or maybe you weren't old enough, or maybe you weren't the right gender or whatever? Is there something that maybe you wish that you had tried, and maybe you can still try that thing? And maybe, just to think about like, is there anything in your life that you want to do but don't feel like you have the permission to do. Start a business, leave a job that you know is bad for you. So yeah, for these 3 steps, I think the first step is to just like sort of take that like power, like to give yourself the permission. I know that sounds simple, but like to basically, what's the word that I'm looking for? Grant yourself the permission to give yourself the permission, or sort of, man, there's a word that I really can't think of right now, but that's okay. Because step 1, is just really, really simple of granting yourself the permission. Like you're the one that can give yourself the permission to do anything. So that's the first step, and just kind of like committing to that. And the second one is kind of flipping the feeling of jealousy. And my friend in high school, when he was looking at that guitarist Dimebag Darrell and then being kind of discouraged by it, maybe when you feel sort of jealous of someone, like jealous of someone's skills, jealous of maybe a job that somebody has, or even a relationship or something, how can you like flip that? Like, how can you recognize that it's jealousy and then be like, okay, I'm jealous of this person's skills, but if they got there and they can do that, then that also means that I can do it if I allow myself to think that. And I think that allowing yourself to kind of like flip the sign again. I know we talked about that recently with what episode was that? Imposter syndrome. Yeah, it was with the imposter syndrome episode. I think that that's huge, to be able to like take a negative feeling and ask what that's showing you. Like, why am I jealous of this person? Oh, because they're good at playing guitar. Well, I could be good at playing guitar too if I practiced. So then instead of worrying or wasting your energy being jealous, you can use that energy to go practice guitar. And that's what I did in high school. And that's why I think I became good at playing and like proficient in playing, because I didn't spend time like, I guess comparing myself in a negative way. I would just like use it as inspiration. So I think like really, like looking at the jealousy and flipping that and being like, that means that I can do it too. And then the third thing I think that's really important that we haven't really touched on yet is surrounding yourself with people who encourage that and who like also kind of give you the permission. And I know this episode's about giving yourself permission, but sometimes it can be hard to do that. And if you're around people that are always kind of positive, and encourage you to do new things and to try new things and to, go learn that new instrument or start that job, then that is certainly a lot more helpful than being around people who will constantly question things that you want to do, or be like, you want to do that? Why do you want to go do that? I think that a few things are kind of coming up to mind as I'm talking about this. One of them, I was telling somebody that I was doing a half marathon, and I never talked to this person about running before, but it happened to be that she was also running. And I think I was saying something about like how like, yeah, I've never ran that far before. And she was like, yeah, you could totally do that. Like, and the first reaction was like, yeah, you can totally do that. And I think that that's just something to notice. Like, you want to keep those types of people around, the people that are like going to be supportive in the new things that you want to do, or the things that maybe sound weird or crazy or out of the norm. There's some people that will encourage that and encourage what you want. And then there's other people that won't. And I think it can be helpful to sort of limit exposure around people that give you the negativity, or sort of question why you want to do something, or are you sure you want to do that? That seems dangerous, or that seems risky, or that seems not lucrative. Like the people that sort of go there first, I try to at least limit myself, or don't, I'm able to not take it personally at this point. But I think it's really helpful to surround yourself around people who do encourage your ideas. And that can help you then give yourself the permission, because you can think about that one person, like I can go back to my friend that I was talking to and be like, what would she say if I was going to do this new thing? She would immediately say, yeah, that's great. You should totally do that. Like, go for it. See what happens. And then you can kind of train your own brain to start thinking like that. And, so to start giving yourself the permission. So yeah, just, I've felt pretty, strongly about this topic, because I was listening to a podcast about it, and, they were talking about how, like, the age that we're in, you don't need people's permission anymore, because, back in, I think it was like the Industrial Revolution or, whatever. I'm not great on like time periods and stuff, but back before the internet, right? If you wanted to be an author, you needed a publishing company to grant you the permission to be an author. And because they were the only ones that had the printing presses that could actually publish a book. Same thing with like the music industry. You needed a major record label to be like, hey, I think you can sing. I think that you're good enough at making music. I'm going to sign you, also take most of the income and then put you out into the world, and then you'll be a famous singer. And there wasn't, like, you couldn't record at home. You couldn't write a book on your laptop. Like, so now, to make a long story short, now we have the ability to put things out there and to create things on our own, and we don't need a publishing company. We don't need a major record label to tell us that, like, we can create the things that we want to create, because we can go do that and we can put them online, and they can resonate and connect with people that, maybe you're not going to be New York Times bestselling author that way, but you can connect with somebody in a way that it makes that endeavor really worthwhile to you. So yeah, I mean, I think we're really kind of at a day and age where we don't need other people's permissions to do something. And, obviously it's important to get people's feedback, especially, or actually really only the people that you care about and love's feedback. But you have the permission to do whatever it is that you envision in your head. And you don't have to wait on somebody else. You don't have to wait on somebody to be like, okay, you're good enough now. I think that also brings up a memory of me playing guitar. And like, I never thought I was good enough to be in a band. And one day I was at Guitar Center, just like playing a guitar that I couldn't buy just because I like to used to do that. And then one of the employees came over and he's like, hey, are you in a band? And I was like, no. And he was like, oh, you should be in a band. You sound good. And I didn't even take him seriously. I was like, he's just saying that because he wants me to buy something. But he probably did mean that. And I just was like so low self-esteem that I was like, oh, I'm not good enough yet. But looking back, I clearly was good enough. You don't need to be very good at guitar to be in a band. Learn 3 chords and you can be in a band. But anyways, kind of rambling on now, but, moral of the story, what's the thing that you are waiting on for permission to do? And can you just go ahead and start that in some way today? So yeah, I think that's all I got for you today. Thank you for listening as always. If you haven't checked out my website yet, we got a website for this podcast, workingtowardsourpurpose.com. I got some more content on there for purpose, and head on over if you haven't been already. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.